they haven't, you know, I said, well, I sent the rest of the party on, and I waited for the kids. I was kind of in charge of this trip, and I didn't want to just abandon them. So I waited for them, and they finally showed up. They had just misinterpreted where they were supposed to be. And so I waited for them, and they came. So the rest of the day, our canoes had to really paddle hard to make it where we were supposed to make it that night. Well, the final day, we stopped at Devon, and we were going to paddle in. We had a meeting with the minister at 3 o'clock to deliver these petitions. So we're paddling and the wind is against us. And I don't know if you've ever tried to paddle in the North Saskatchewan River with the wind against you, but it's hard. So we had a 3 o'clock meeting with the minister, and we're paddling like hell, you know, to get there in time. Well, we just get to the high level bridge, right below the high level bridge at 3 o'clock, and we're supposed to be meeting with the minister. And so there's the media. The bank is lined with media. 35 media, cameras and reporters and everything lining the bank. One of the reporters says, well, you know, you'll make the national news if you just carry the canoe up to the legislature. We said, you carry the canoe up to the legislature, we'll take your picture. Like, you know, we paddled all day hard. So I went up and delivered the minister would only allow me to go into the meeting with him, so I took the petitions in. And so I'm in my shorts from the, you know, I paddled down all day and haven't had a chance to clean up or anything, so we delivered the petitions. And that was, we did a lot of other things with the Odyssey. We held our own public hearings, conducted our own public hearings, had 35 people participate in our hearings, including the Rocky Chamber of Commerce, and issued a report and recommendations. We did all kinds of things, but that was one of the one of the many Odyssey stories. Now, the Old Man Dam, that was certainly one of the places I became famous, and it was sort of by accident. I had been, some of these things you don't plan. It's just the way things happen. I had been involved, I was chairing the Alberta Environmental Network, and I was the representative of Alberta on the National Steering Committee to the Canadian Environmental Network. And I had spent 2 years doing that. And when you're doing that, it's mostly administration. You don't have much time left over for actually working on issues. So I had spent those 2 years and thought, okay, well, now it's time to get back involved in issues, really in issues. So a group from near Lethbridge called me up and asked if I'd facilitate a workshop on a strategic planning workshop. And I said, sure, I would. I do a lot of that with groups to help empower them. So I said, I agreed to do it. And I went down there and did it. And of course, because I was looking for something to do and just happened to have some slack time, I actually got quite active and took the lead on the legal actions. Well, one of the things we did there was a canoe trip with media. We took the media on a canoe trip down the Old Man River, just to give them, you know, you gotta give them an experience. So we took them on the Old Man and took them on a media tour, tour. Well, this was great, except we had a TV camera along with us, and we thought, well, Diane Pahal was the most experienced paddler amongst us. So we put the TV camera in her canoe, in the middle of her canoe, and we had a paddler on each end. Well, we weren't very far down this trip and went through rapids, and their canoe flipped. It was the only one that flipped, but their canoe flipped, and there went the TV camera. Now, Milton Born with a Tooth, when he was doing his the blockade, or when they were tearing down the weir and had the camp set up, he calls me up one night or one day, and he says, come down and meet with us, or I want you to come down and meet with me. And I said, okay, I'll come down and meet with you. So I was picking up a German veterinary student from the airport, because I was having vet students come in and do an internship with me for a couple of months each year. So I had scheduled to pick up my German vet student at the airport in Calgary. So I went down and picked them up, camped the first night. I mean, here's the student, he doesn't know what he's in for. So the first night he's here, we camped near Fort Macleod, because it was late by the time we got there, and tent camped. So the next morning we drive out early, and we get to where Milton's camp is. Milton and the men are just going into a sweat lodge. They had decided this was the time the spirits moved them to do a sweat lodge. And we had just driven down and spent over. So anyhow, when that happens, that happens. So he didn't know how long it was going to be, because it just, however long it takes. So they were going into sweat. Okay. So we hung around and looked at where the cat was buried in the mud. And we didn't get caught like Cliff sitting on the cat with the helicopters taking pictures of that. But we looked at the mud, or the cat caught in the mud. I had the German student and a couple of my sons with me at the time. And so the women, or they had caught, somebody had shot a deer and they were drying it. But they didn't know how to make a drying rack. Well, I had looked in books and seen pictures of how Indian drying racks had looked. So, so we had the German vet student, myself and my sons, making a drying rack for the Indians to dry their venison on. So we helped them cut up this deer and made this drying rack and helped dry their deer out. And then finally, we had to leave. Milton, they didn't finish the sweat lodge, but we had to get back because we'd spent the whole day there. So we left. So we were left without getting to meet with Milton that time. Now, the Supreme Court hearing on the old man was one of the most special days in my life. And I've had a lot of special days, but that was one of the most special days. There was 24 gowned lawyers representing 7 provinces in the federal government against us. Ourselves, the Northwest Territories in support of us, a couple of environmental groups intervened on behalf of us, and 1 or 2 Native groups intervened on behalf of us. We had 2 of the lawyers there. The rest were, most of the lawyers there were lawyers for the governments that were opposing us. And it was a great, great experience. I encourage anyone who ever gets a chance to attend a Supreme Court hearing to go to it. We were great. We were wonderful. Our lawyers were the best lawyers by far. We did so good. Their lawyers were so bad. I mean, they were really bad. I felt sorry for them, actually. They were so bad. I mean, these were government lawyers, and you would think they could have done better. But, and so, and then we came out, of course, we came out of the hearing, and again, media scrum, huge media scrum. But that was one of the best experiences, of course, then to have won that one. Now, you may think we lost the Old Man Down battle. We didn't. We didn't lose the Old Man Down battle. We knew when we held the workshop in Lethbridge back in 1978, I believe it was, that our chances of stopping the dam were not great. Well, we knew that we had to try. We gave ourselves a 10 to 20% chance of actually stopping the dam, but we felt we would be complicit if we didn't try to stop the dam. And so we set out a number of goals, and while the dam went ahead, remember that we established with the Friends of the, or with the Rafferty Alameda group, we established that the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act is law, or at that time it was ERPCO, the Environmental Assessment Review Panel, was law in this country. We established that the federal government has a shared constitutional responsibility for the environment in Canada. And not only that, but the Old Man Dam is the last major dam that has been built in Canada since. There's been no major dams built in Canada since. And all major projects in Canada now, across Canada, have undergone environmental assessments. And even the Old Man itself, while it got built, is what things were better than they would have been. They put in some mitigation. Now, obviously, it was still bad. But we were going to do, one of the Indian chiefs, one of the spiritual leaders, said we were going to have a blockade one day, or they were going to have a blockade of the road, but they decided not to because he had had a dream that the dam was going to be built and that one day it would collapse and be gone. And because he had that dream that it was going to be completed, but that it would disappear, we didn't have the blockade. But I'm confident nature will take care of that dam. I'm quite confident that nature will have its way. And I'm also pleased that a lot of rivers will not be dammed as a result of that. A lot of destruction won't be done as a result of the battle. And with many, many people and the support of many. It certainly wasn't me alone, with the Friends